Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Just Women Talking Shit with your host, Jacqueline Cotton.
But hey, Heather, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing well. I'll be peeling myself an orange while I get to know you. How's First off, where are you located? I'm in Mississippi.
I'm in Colorado.
Colorado, in the U.S. Okay, I always have to check because sometimes I'll get people from across the world and I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know that was a place. So, well, what's the weather like today in Colorado?
You know, it's gorgeous. It's gonna be like almost 70 degrees here today. It's
Nice.
like bring out the spring.
Yes, I'm here for it. I just started, I'm probably, well, I am late in the season, but I started some seeds like last week. And so spring is probably my favorite because I don't know, it's so joyful. All the little butterflies start coming out and I hear
Get
the birds.
strawberries soon.
Strawberries, yes, I'm here for all the fruit for sure.
Hmm.
Oh, but I've always wanted to visit Colorado. Have
It
you
is
been there?
gorgeous.
Is that where you're
Yeah.
from?
Yeah, I'm actually originally from here. We lost our place in a fire in 2013, and we've been bouncing
Wow.
around the country, and just came back to Colorado at the beginning of this year. So full circle. We were in North Carolina for a while until I found out humidity's not my thing. Um,
You would hate Mississippi so much.
Oh yeah. North Carolina is enough, and my part of my family's in Tennessee, so visiting them is
Oh,
enough. So, and then we went
yeah.
up to New England, where my husband's from for a little while, and then again, it was like, let's go back to Colorado.
Hmm. Well, cool. If you
Yeah.
will, take just a moment to introduce yourself to my wonderful audience of Just Women Talking Shit. I'm so honored to have you here today, and I can't wait to pick your brain on what was it you wanted to talk about, and then pelvic and sexual health and all these kinds of things. I don't know much about the pelvic floor in general, and I've had two babies, so I feel like I have a lot to learn today. But if you'll introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Heather Florio. I'm the CEO of Desert Harvest, and we've been doing pelvic and sexual health products, clinical research, and I do educational talks all over the world. And so we've been doing that now for about 31 years. We started in 1993, going on 32. And so I get the joy of getting to educate women all over the world about their bodies and how to take care of them, and then providing them with the necessary tools to be able to do so, or directing them to the resources.
So are you the founder of this company? I read something second generational.
Yes,
What?
second
Okay.
generation. So we started, actually I was in high school in 93 when it started.
Okay.
And so I've been involved in some way or another, but it's a family company. We just do. And in 2012, my parents were like, I'm going to retire. It's your turn to take over. And so I did. And I've loved every minute of it.
How freaking cool. I love that so much that your parents were able to leave that for you and that there's somebody to take over. Super cool.
Yeah.
Well,
And my son works here now. So it's even
oh,
better. So,
I love that. That's like one of my dreams is too. However, it's long story short, I'm what we call like a serial entrepreneur. I just
ah,
I like working for myself, and so I've throughout the years been in several things, and I feel like everybody's um end game for that is to build some big company and some big legacy and be able to leave that for their kids and like bring them into it. So I think that's super cool. When you were in, I bet you didn't think, well, maybe you did. Did you ever think that you would be in this industry or like in sexual health or anything like that in general when you were younger? Because I, I, I was like, what do you want to be when you grow up, Heather?
so I love music, and so even though I started working at Desert Harvest in 1993 and always helped, It really became a conversation for me. I was doing music. I was working in the music industry, doing front of house operations for music venues, private events for musicians. I lived this whole other life, and then I got a 9 to 5 job and stopped working like crazy odd hours, maybe getting sleep every 72 hours. And so, my parents purposely, I think, chose like the perfect time. So, during 2012, we're just starting to slowly eke out of our last economic recession. Most venues were shuttered. There wasn't a lot going on. People weren't spending excess cash. And so my mother's like, you don't have a lot of work anyway. So you just should come here full time, take over, and let me retire.
Oh my gosh, super cool though. It's
Yeah.
interesting how life plays out.
It is.
I'm always curious though what people thought they would be when they were little, and then what they turn out to be. Not that that's like permanent or anything. We can be so many things, but it's still super cool to like just go back and think about it for a second. Oh, well, where do we begin? I what what do I need to know as a woman about the pelvic region? Because I don't feel like I know a lot. I feel like there's a lot going on down there, but I don't know much about it. So,
It is your hammock. It is literally your hammock to all of your organs, it's holding everything in place. So you've got to think how critical that hammock is. And no matter what region, it's connected to your entire musculoskeletal system. So if you're sitting there and get an injury in a different part of the body, such as, for instance, with our pelvic wands, we work with a lot of the UK football teams in the UK, and they're required to use our pelvic wands because it gets them out on and do pelvic floor physical therapy because it gets them out onto the field 3 times faster than if they had not done pelvic floor physical therapy. So, and that's any injury anywhere in their body.
well, that's interesting. What is did you say pelvic wand?
Yeah, so utilizing a pelvic wand. So we utilize there are a variety on the market, but we actually were the first to develop a pelvic wand in the early 2000s. If we want to go back to sex toys, that's a different story. But utilizing in a sexual purpose. But in this case, this is an S-curved wand. We typically use the borosilicate glass type, and that is because it's completely non-porous. You can heat it, you can cool it. It's easy to keep clean. And whereas, silicone base that we typically see with our sex toys, with the other pelvic ones that exist out on the market nowadays, they're all made of a medical grade silicone. Well, even that medical grade silicone over time becomes porous and over time begins to degrade. And so if you're not very careful about how you clean that, how you take care of it, you can be introducing bacteria into your vaginal biome. And so as a result, with pelvic ones, we are very upfront about that is why we utilize glass for all of ours. And we're getting ready to introduce some new ones. We actually just purchased last year another company called TheraWand, which was another brand. And we liked some of their designs because they can also work very well for sexual function and hitting very deep trigger spots and things like that, as well as reaching further back pelvic floor muscles. And so we're actually in the middle of developing a few more as well. Right now we have the two, which is one is a regular size. And what pelvic wands utilize, I guess I should start there a little bit, is that they help reduce muscle. So when you get an injury, you're giving birth, you're having a lot of pelvic pain, menstruation, for instance, every month. Your pelvic floor becomes like this, so tight. Imagine a tightened dish rag. And as a result, that hypertonic pelvic floor needs to be released and then strengthened back up. But when people start getting pelvic pain, they start thinking, oh, I need to go to Kegels. And that is not the case. If you started doing Kegels and you have a hypertonic pelvic floor, you are going to make the issue worse. You have to be able to release the muscles and then strengthen them back up with Kegel type exercises.
Okay. If we go back to, can you explain to my audience what like the actual pelvic floor is so we can understand that a little bit?
Yeah, so definitely. These are a variety of different muscles that have nerve endings, and they're all running and like acting as literally sitting in your sacrum and literally holding everything in place. And you've got your levitator ani, which kind of is your perineum. It's right there kind of between your anus and your vaginal opening. And that is kind of the middle point, the sweet spot in which everything kind of connects. And so massaging the perineum, let's say for instance, when you're giving birth, can help soften that tissue, help prevent tears, but also utilizing pelvic floor physical therapy before you give birth should be a requirement, because what that does is when you have a stronger pelvic floor, we see less issues and incidences afterwards in clinical research of endometriosis, uterine fibroids, PCOS. We see a lot of less, and then we see a lot less damage to the pelvic floors, because this, like I said, is holding everything in, all of your organs, and this is all of the musculature that sits down at that base, your root, and this is, like I said, over and over again, it is your hammock. And so it is really important that you protect that hammock, that you keep that hammock toned, and that you maintain utilizing exercises such as yoga, things like that. A lot of pelvic floor exercises, and even what you see as Kegels, are born out of yogic exercises. Because if you think about it, you always have one part of your body that's engaged, and you have one part of your body in yoga that is always relaxed. And this is what you're trying to achieve, is a balance between strength and relaxation within the pelvic floor, so that then you don't experience, a lot of people think that when they're having, you can feel very much radiating pain, and you might think it's your bladder. It could be coming from, your spine. You've got so many different nerves running directly through your pelvic floor, and it connects via the vagus nerve also, that runs as, this is your super highway that runs from your brain all the way to your pelvic floor, to your root, all the way down. And so this is the idea, is fundamentally is this super highway is communicating. And if the strength of your pelvic floor is weak, you can have radiating pain in all different types of the body, different parts of the body, as well as if you have an injury in a different part of your body, you might feel it in your pelvic floor. So if you've ever thought of, like, you have a car accident and you tense up and you're like, oh, I need a massage, I need to go to a chiropractor, I need something. Think of that happening to your pelvic floor when something happens, when you have a trauma to your body, even when you get into a car accident, that pelvic floor muscles are also tensing up. And this can create a variety of things, a variety of different problems. Even, there's a condition called vaginismus, in which your vagina becomes so tight, you can't even, the vaginal opening, the vestibule, becomes so tight that you can't even put a tampon inside of it.
That
Yeah.
sounds painful. That sounds painful.
It's horribly painful. And that can happen for all different types of reasons. So addressing and within that condition, you really need to address both your mental health and your pelvic health in that situation, because a lot of those are trauma based. Sometimes it can be as a result of rape. We've seen situations. There was a case study that I listened to once, in which a woman, this was a Christian, abstinence based. She grew up very much, you don't have sex till marriage, you don't have sex till marriage. And she gets to that wedding night, and what happens? Her vagina just her vestibule just closes up and says no. Do you know it took her 7 years to be able to have sex with her husband
Oh,
as a result of having that fear-based response. So as a matter of both psychological help as well as pelvic floor help to get her to the point where they could get her, her vestibule or vaginal opening to open.
that is wild. And I
Mm-hmm.
now understand much better what it means when someone says pelvic, like pelvic floor and pelvic health. So after hearing all that though, that means that there's good pelvic health and bad pelvic health. Okay, so I'm curious because when you said some of those things, I was like, oh, holy shit, this kind of makes sense for me. I've joked with my husband and well, it's my show. Here we go. And we're talking about sex anyway. One of his favorite things is that I am so, I guess I don't know if there's a professional word for that, but like tight. And I'm like, I'm glad you like that, but when it comes to me, like it's uncomfortable. And I've always thought that maybe it's like stress or trauma or something like that, but I just feel constantly sucked in. So when I hear women talk about doing Kegels, I'm like, I do those permanently. I feel like I'm like always very tense, you know? So I'm curious because these are things I notice in myself, and it makes it either very pleasurable or not pleasurable because it can take a long time to get comfortable and be able to actually have intercourse. Okay, now I'm feeling like, okay, there's some things we got to talk about. But I know that probably other women are going through that too. So what are some signs of bad? I don't want to use the word bad, but that our pelvic health is not the best it could be.
So definitely, one of the biggest things is for an example is urinary leakage. Urinary leakage is not normal, and most of the causes are related to pelvic floor dysfunction. And so if you're leaking, there was the whole article. I always try to use this as an example. Helena Bonham Carter. She was filming Harry Potter as Bellatrix, and she had just given birth the year before, and she was literally just whoosh leaking while she's filming, can't stop. There's a Olympic deadlifter, female, same thing, leaking when she's lifting. That is not normal. And that is a sign, it is a clear sign of pelvic floor dysfunction. If you are having pain with sex, that is typically also a very clear sign of pelvic floor dysfunction. Sex and pain should not be synonymous. You should feel comfortable. And so like what you're talking about, Jacqueline, with your husband, one of the things that is I would recommend right off the bat is incorporating some tantric exercises before you engage in sexual, and it's really a buildup. But not only that, it's also going to increase the level of orgasm and also make you feel much more relaxed and much more comfortable. There are several that are just very meditative practices. A good example I'll briefly describe is, let's say you and your husband, he sits down on the bed, pillows propped up, and when you engage in a tantric practice, you want to engage all of the senses. So create some auditory stimulation, the music that gets you in the mood, makes you feel good, candles, lighting, mood, all of that play a very important part. And then when you get those senses, kind of have him sit up with some pillows propped. You can then straddle him. No sexual engagement at this point. It becomes about you two syncing each other and at the same time calming your autonomic nervous system. So as a result, you can literally start engaging where he breathes out, you breathe in, and through engage back and forth. So in and out through orally, you're doing this. So you're doing it back and forth. So you're almost taking in, and at the same time, make sure that you're connecting, visually together. that you're looking into each other's eyes, and do that for about like 21 breaths, and create a sense of calm and peace before you engage in sexual practice. And this can also help into heighten sexual function. The other thing that I recommend highly, that's also a tantric practice, but this one will be really for you, but it also can be for him to edge off his orgasm as well, because technically, orgasm and an ejaculation are two separate things for a man, and they should always orgasm. They shouldn't always ejaculate, because it's yeah. And this
My
is
mind is
because
like, whoa, what's happening? You don't know the world at all. Like, what?
when a man ejaculates, you've got to imagine there's so much nutrients within their ejaculatory sperm, and as a result, they're actually giving away their energy. They're giving away nutrients out of their body. They're giving power away. So unless you're trying to make babies, there is not a need for a man to always ejaculate. There is a need for him to orgasm, and men aren't taught how to separate the two and how to create, and that actually is using their pelvic floor muscles to do kind of what is called edging. And that kind of helps if they learn to kind of create that edging, it increases their orgasm, but they can also, at that same time, at that levator ani muscle, they can also control that right there themselves as well, in between their scrotum and their anus, and that can help them from ejaculating. But for you, one of the greatest things is called ocean breathing. And so yeah. So I'll just kind of demonstrate, just like, it's literally, it almost sounds like you're orgasming, but this actually calms your autonomic nervous system. So if you're getting too heightened too fast, let's say, you can utilize this even in masturbation. So realize touch is very important. Touching all parts of your vulva, your labia majora, your labia minora, like touch everywhere. Don't just go straight for the clitoris. Don't go straight for the vaginal opening. Play, touch, feel, and then engage in clitoral stimulation. And then you could actually back yourself back off. By utilizing ocean breathing, which is literally like, and that's literally like taking in a deep breath, letting it all out. And by doing this, and you can do it multiple times and keep doing that, and you're really calming your autonomic nervous system, but you're also holding off your orgasm so that you can continue stimulation and heighten your orgasm at the same time, but also relaxing and calming that pelvic floor.
Girl, my search history later is going to be so weird. I'm going to be looking up so much shit. Oh man, you just blew my mind in so many ways. So we now know what a pelvic floor is. I now know that men can orgasm without ejaculating. Didn't think I've never known that. Where do we even go from here? Tell me. Okay, this all leads into the company
Mm-hmm.
that you are now leading. And so can you tell us more about how your company twines together with all this and how you're making a difference in the world?
Yeah, definitely. I'll start by a little bit going into the vagina.
Let's
And
do it.
so one of the most important things regarding vaginal health, and it is very important for us. So we started with one product specifically for a bladder disorder called interstitial cystitis. That product is our SSAV capsules. They're currently undergoing FDA drug approval. And we're really excited about that. We've been working, and interstitial cystitis is like having a constant UTI that never goes away, debilitatingly painful, frequency beyond compare, and predominantly affects 75% women, 25% men. And so it's very important, for us as we began, obviously our demographic became predominantly female. And so we began creating and researching and identifying products and ingredients that would make a difference in the vaginal biome. We know that there is 10 million products now these days. It's just insane in the past 10 years how many products have come out, claiming that they do this, something like that. I think I listened to one of your other podcasts where someone was talking about like eating something that makes your vagina smell like pineapple or something.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
that's like a perfect
Ridiculous.
example of ridiculousness that's out there. Just because someone tells you on as an influencer on social or on whatever that this product is going to do something for you doesn't mean it is. And that goes for whether we're just talking sexual lubricants, women's health, menopause, whatever that is. You're being peddled everything under the sun. And there is simple ways to understand that our vaginal health, when you look at products and you're looking at what to choose to go inside your vagina, two things are very, very critical. Most people know about pH, and that our vagina is acidic. Its ideal pH for the vagina is right around 4.5. Most products that are out on the market these days, whether we're talking soaps, even if we're talking about sperm, it's all alkaline. So we're constantly introducing products to our vaginal biome that are alkaline and throwing off our pH. So that's number one. But number two is osmolality. And this is the conversation that is not happening in our world enough. And in 2016, the only true medical study that has been done was done by the World Health Organization for third country sex workers. And they were trying to figure out what they could do to reduce the incidence of STIs and bacterial infections and fungal infections. And they found that the osmolality is what prevented and helped with this. And so osmolality is how you have your vaginal wall and you have your epithelial cell layer. Your vaginal wall is your protective barrier inside your vagina. And if you start introducing ingredients that are not what is called isoosmolar. So isoosmolar is ideal osmolality for a woman's vagina is 290. And you only want your products that insert into your vagina to be plus or minus 80 points, according to the World Health Organization. And like I said, the only study that's been done. I will tell you right now, most of the products that are out there on sexual lubricants that are on the market, very common names that you probably know and see in the store every day, 10,000, 9,000, 2,000. This is their osmolality. So what happens? And then we have sexual lubricants on the market that are like 80 for osmolality, things like this. So those are hypoosmolar, was the like 10,000, 2,000, 9,000. Those are hyperosmolar. And so what that means is whether you go hyper or hypo, your cells begin to dry out as you continually introduce these ingredients, and your vaginal wall literally falls out. And you've just lost your barrier of protection to STIs, bacteria, fungus. You've just now given them a super highway directly to embed and to cause infection. And the same thing also happens anally as well. But the anus is actually more sensitive, less to osmolality and more to pH. If you put in acidic, you're having fun and you're in play and everything else like that, and you use an acidic vaginal lubricant and you put it in the anus, your epithelial cell layer in your anus instantaneously falls out. Does not wait. And so the anus is completely separate of the vaginal biome. The anus is alkaline. And so you need to make sure that you're utilizing products that are alkaline for the anus, acidic, and isoosmolar for the vagina.
Okay, so what are we, when we go to the store, I guess without mentioning any brand names, what are we looking for on boxes then? Because I mean, I got a couple that came to mind and I'm like, oh, well, shit. I don't even know what to look for. Like when we we go and look at ingredients all the time, or some of us do. What do we look for? I wouldn't even know
Here,
what to look for.
here is a great thing for you to look for. So sexual products at all, sexual lubricants, anything that you insert into the vagina, whether you're looking at vaginal probiotics, you're looking at vaginal moisturizers or things like that. Anything that you insert into the vagina is required to have what's called an FDA clearance for as a medical device. And as a result, as part of the testing to get the FDA medical device clearance, you have to do osmolality testing and pH testing. They have these numbers. If they won't give them to you, and you reach out to the company, you email, you call, whatever, and they won't give them to you, then that's a red flag. Another red flag is there are many companies out there that you see now. If they don't strictly say sexual lubricant and they say play oil and they only mention vulvas or they only mention, your woman parts, and those are creative ways in which they are trying to get around the FDA compliance and not spend the money to become FDA compliant and make money off of just putting products out there. So those are good indicators for you. If you just see people talking about play and they don't strictly call it a sexual lubricant and they cannot provide you the osmolality or the pH of their product, those are all red flags right there.
So is this something that we could also like find when we look at the box though?
No.
The
Because
packaging?
they're not going to put it out there unless they got a good number. And I can tell you right now, ours Alloglide, it's on the bottle. It says 308, which
Okay.
is it's 100% natural, natural origin, sexual lubricant, and it's pH balanced at 4.5, and there is at least one other brand that I know out there on the market that's probably on the shelves, would be the only other brand I'd recommend in the United States.
Okay.
And
So let's just get some Alloglide, you called it?
yeah, Desert Harvest Aloe Glide. So
Let's go with them then.
ours. And and I know that this other company as well also puts their number on the bottle. That's a clear indicator as well. If they're not freely giving you this information and putting this information out there for you to be an educated consumer, all red flags.
Yeah. I never knew any of that. Also, just so you know, I will be having nightmares about my vagina wall falling out tonight.
I did this podcast once and they're like, are you saying my pussy's gonna fall?
I mean, you gotta ask. And also, I'm gonna be extra careful with the butt stuff. So.
Yes. Do not. It's easy to get fun and start playing and mixing and matching toys and lubricants and everything else like that. Don't. Different stuff for the anal biome than the vaginal biome.
Oh my God, that's just terrifying to think about. So, but I got a really good visual. I'm just like, oh my God. No, I could have went my whole life without hearing that, but I needed to know it. So that's that.
Yeah. But then we have an amazing array of other products. We have Aloe Rebalance, which is a natural origin feminine wash. You don't need anything to clean inside the vagina. It's self-cleaning, but the vulva just kind of gives you that sense of clean and freshness that you might not otherwise have. And by utilizing just a normal soap that's alkaline, you could be exposing your biome to alkalinity with, just from transference. You got a big vaginal opening right there. So when you're washing, that's why we created a bio-matched feminine wash. And then we also have the Aloe Fresh Wipes, which are amazing. I swear by these because I have them in my bathroom, my car, my purse, pick a place, by my bedside, like because they're great because they're made of a viscous bamboo. They're all natural origin ingredients. They've got lactobacillus in them, so literally you can just wipe after sex, after pelvic floor physical therapy, after you void if you have a UTI, just to kind of help rebalance and keep things clean and fresh down there for you.
Sounds nice. Sounds refreshing.
Yes, and then
And
we've got the pelvic floor tools as well, like the pelvic ones I mentioned earlier.
uh-huh.
I did write a book with a clinician at Duke University called The Musculoskeletal Mystery: How to Solve Your Pelvic Floor Symptoms. That's available on our website. And then we have an entire supplement line that was made to be bladder friendly, which we're actually excited here in 2 months. We have a new ingredient that we're getting ready to release because we know recurrent UTIs are a common problem. And the standard over the counter right now is D-mannose, which in clinical research only shows to bind to E. coli bacteria, nothing else. And so we actually found an ingredient in the wilds of Finland that binds to 3. And our recent research shows potentially 2 more, so a total of 5 bacterias that it could bind to. So this is going to have, 4 times or more the coverage that you would typically get from just taking D-mannose. And so we're excited to bring that out. We also, actually next week, we start shipping our Lunation, which are period panties. And we developed them because we thought, one, we don't all have to wear granny panties just because we're menstruating. Um, and why can't we make them beautiful? Why can't we make them completely chemical free? And so we made a new fabric out of aloe, our aloe plants and our aloe fields in Mexico. And so we actually developed a fabric. So aloe is naturally antibacterial, antifungal, antimicrobial. We also utilized a ginger piece of fabric to deodorize. And then we used a whole bunch of bamboo fabric as well for that soft touch. And then a plant-based lace that will kind of be the band. And so we're really excited to bring those out because every batch of fabric that we get will be sent for testing to show that no chemical ever touched an inch of that fabric.
That's incredible and good to hear because as a mom, I'm finding out. I don't know. It's like once you become a mom, you start looking at
Yeah.
ingredients and you care. And now I know about like red dye and all
Oh,
these things, and I'm just like, and people don't. We just don't realize how many things are covered in chemicals. Like if I started thinking about deodorant and everything. It seems like everything is just stuff full of chemicals, even
it
food, and it's
is.
really scary. So,
Yeah, what I recommend for products, if you're looking for personal care products, always check the environmental working group. They have an amazing database they check for chemicals and they rate the
mhm.
product, its toxicity of all the products on their website. And then for food, of course, following the Food Babe on Instagram, she is amazing. And she's the one advocating for our food health and to get this crap out of our food. So definitely recommend following her on Instagram as well, just so that you can head towards a clean life.
I will for sure do that. There's an airplane flying overhead, so if you hear that, just ignore that. I never know if anybody can hear it or not. It's real loud to me, but not
Yeah, I'm
typically to
like,
everybody else.
I'm
Oh, well,
not
that's
hearing a
good.
thing. You'll just have to make airplane sounds to make me get the gist of it.
I don't think I'm very good at those. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is so cool. I feel like I have so much more to learn about pelvic health still though. And when you mentioned the whole leaking thing, I've the only leaking I've ever experienced was after having a baby and it was like that little sneeze thing. But it breaks my heart to think that there are women that have to deal with like that, but on a whole new level. Like what you explained sounds terrible. Like the whole
It's
leaking thing.
Yeah, and it's
So,
awful, and just like you said, it's after giving birth. That is most causes for women, because in reality, we should all be having pelvic floor physical therapy to before giving birth. We actually did a whole campaign in the UK where we, the national health system started making it a standard of care. Of course, without having socialized medicine here, let alone good women's health care in general, like being able to get that into our system has been difficult. We're now working in Canada to hopefully be able to do the same thing, because it's very important that when you go to the doctor and you're like, okay, if you want to breastfeed, here's a lactation specialist. You need to take these supplements. We need to do all these blood tests to look for genetic this. Oh, and you need to go to pelvic floor physical therapy. Let me give you a referral. In the UK, it's all in one place, so that there's an entire pregnancy maternal care center where you can get all of this done in one place. They have the PT. You go from one room to the next room, to the next room, to the next room. That is what should be happening here in the US, and it's not. We need pelvic floor physical therapy to be part of the standard of care for pregnancy.
so interesting. And like you said, it's not even introduced before pregnancy. Like it's very new to me. A friend mentioned that she was going to a physical therapy, and that she also had to get floor therapy, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I have no idea what that means. Um,
And most
well,
women don't. Don't ever be scared of it. That's the one thing I say. Like,
yeah.
yes, imagine yourself, and you don't even have to go to the point. They can start by doing an external exam, especially communicate with your clinician. If you have trauma, if you have fear, let them know that when you go in there. Let them know
Mhm.
that you are afraid. This is going to feel like a typical, vaginal exam for your annual. That's very much what it's going to feel like on initial evaluation. And if you have an amazing pelvic floor physical therapist, they're going to walk you through this process. And as long as you keep those lines of communication open about what feels good, what doesn't, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, the whole
Mhm.
idea is to get you to learn, to get you functional again, and then to teach you how to take care of it going forward.
Okay. Besides the leaking and besides the pain during sex, are there any like other common things for us to look for as far as having abnormal pelvic health?
There is a variety of things. I mean, you could, for instance, if you ride bicycles all the time,
Mhm.
you that sitting on that seat all the time can actually cause pelvic floor dysfunction. So it can sometimes hurt to sit. You may feel it. Oh, it's my spine, it's my back, and it's my back, and you're like, no, it's your
Mhm.
pelvic floor. It's your pelvic floor. So really understanding, because, and as women we have so much going on down there that it's hard to isolate. Is this my pelvic floor? Is this my bladder causing pain? Is this my uterus causing pain? Like, what is this, my colon causing me pain? What is causing pain here?
Mhm.
And isolating that can be difficult as a woman, but going to a pelvic floor physical therapist and learning how to feel your own musculature, and feel in there. You can feel, think of your vestibule, your vaginal opening, like a clock, and you
Mhm.
can literally feel around based on that clock. Feel 6 o'clock, feel 3 o'clock over here. You can feel the different muscles and begin to feel your own musculature, and at the same time maybe grab a handheld mirror, that map your vulva, understand your vulva, and then understand, you can even, as you're feeling there, get to know your own body. We are taught a level of shame when it comes to masturbation
Mhm.
in our society, and this doesn't necessarily have to be masturbation, although masturbation is also good for you, but especially if you don't have a partner, because orgasming is part of health. This is part of your sexual function. And if you think about it again with your pelvic floor, if you're tensing up and being like, oh no, I can't have sex, I can't have sex, I can't have sex, think about an orgasm. You tense up and then you release and calm down.
Mhm.
And so orgasming can be a very, very good thing for you and for your pelvic floor. And if you don't have a partner, there is nothing wrong with self-pleasure. And also, even if you do have a partner, no matter what, learn your body. Because we don't do it when we're young. We're taught a level of shame. We actually support a program called Raising Sexually Healthy Children. Because from birth to 9 years, no, they do not see sex like we as adults do. They do not see our private parts as, oh, sex. They don't think in that manner. And so as a result, this is just an exploration of self. What feels good on their body? What doesn't feel good on their body? Think about touching a stove. Like you're like, oh, yep, I'm never doing that again. But at the same time, you're like, oh, wait, I want to do this again. Like I had one friend and she kept finding her daughter behind the couch. And I actually praised her because she said, she stopped her husband from stopping her because she was masturbating. She was feeling, in a sense, she was touching her clitoris and it felt good to her. And she called it her happy flower. And she saw like, I need to go touch my happy flower or stuff like that. And we have to think about, you have your child in the bathtub, especially if, you're a mom and you got the boy in the bathtub and they're touching themselves and you're like, don't do that, don't do that. But what you're doing from the very beginning, if you stop their self-exploration and it's safe and it's in a safe environment, you're creating sexual shame for them. And it would be better for them to learn and understand their bodies, especially for a woman, because that creates a level of empowerment when after 10 and you start to get hormonal, sex starts to become sex. Oh, those boys look good, those girls look good, and you begin on that journey that you are empowered because you understand your body and you're not like, this boy's touching me now and do I want this, do I not want this, like what these whole level of emotions. And instead you go into a sexual situation with a level of empowerment and be like, no, that doesn't work for me, no, I do not want to do this. Oh, or you go, oh, feels good, this is where I want you.
I love your perspective on that because a lot of people do not see it that way. And we have a big blended family. I have a daughter from my previous relationship. I have a son with my husband, and he has 3 boys. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of penis talk around here. So much penis talk. And my son is obsessed with his penis. He's 4. And I think it is the funniest thing because he is so curious about it. And our number one rule is, because my husband or anybody else might be like, stop. And I always wanted them to, and it's probably because I come from that sexual shame and that trauma of being in the Bible Belt. And I was made an example of when I lost my virginity in the church and whatnot. And so I've always told our boys and my daughter, totally normal. You're going to love it one day. Just do it in the privacy of your own room, please. Please. Don't give your mom a heart attack. Do it somewhere else, okay?
Yeah. That's exactly it. It's creating, you are teaching, you don't have to tell them to stop, but you can tell them time and place. You can tell them you are the parent. You are teaching them when it's good to do things, when it's not good to do things, in all different kinds of cases. And masturbation is no different. Like, they need to understand that if she was doing that behind the couch and there was a packed living room, my friend's daughter, like, that might not be such a good thing. And we might be like, honey, that let's talk about when this is okay to do and when this is not okay to do. It's even as a child, have open communication with your children. And that's wonderful that you're doing that with your boys. My boys are now all adults and I had 3 boys. And they literally, I always say, they know more about a woman's body than most women probably know. And they can be open. And now my oldest son is married, and even with my daughter-in-law, I can be like, I learned this new technique. You should try this. They're a couple. They need to experience pleasure together. And maybe my son doesn't want to hear it from his mom, but my daughter-in-law is like,
She's
tell
like,
me.
give me all the cheat codes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, your
Exactly.
mother-in-law of the year, I bet.
Yeah. So
Oh my
it's
gosh.
creating those open lines of communication and creating that level of comfort, because the minute you start to create shame, you can create a level of unsafety for your children, especially for women. That navigate a world where they're not educated and they don't know and might be coerced into things that they might not feel comfortable doing. But because whether you tell them is no sex before marriage doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. And if you don't give them the tools, even if you are, you're raising your child with the Christian, with the religious values, whatever those might be, giving them the power and the tools and the knowledge about their own body, they're still going to end up in those situations at some point, and you should give them the tools for success and empowerment for their own selves.
Yeah, didn't expect it to end on this note, but I think it's super empowering that it did, because I know a lot of my listeners are moms who have kids, and now listeners are around the world, but as Bible Belt people, Mississippi ladies, like we struggle with these things. Like, who do we talk to about it? Like, because there's so much shame around it still, and I'm like, I see it so different, so different.
And every woman I talk to from any age, and I talk to some of our customers sometimes, whether, I've talked to 100-year-old woman and taught her how to use an applicator and insert it into her vagina because she didn't know how to use an applicator. At all levels, every woman has a question she wants answered and doesn't know where to go to get those answers.
Have you seen the show Grace and Frankie?
Oh, yes. I love Lily Tomlin. I actually did a show with Lily Tomlin back in the day. I love her.
Shut up.
Yeah, she actually, I loved it because, I had a male boss at this particular venue. I won't go into details, but I was in the green room and I brought Lily something and we got to chatting, and I was telling her a story because when I was little, I remembered, back in the day in the early 80s, she did this skit with, and my parents took me to see her because she was sitting in the, the big giant chair and doing her comedy skit. And it never left me, even as a young girl. And so we were chit-chatting about this, and my male boss comes in and yells at me and tells me to get back to work and da 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 da. And I mean, she put him in his place.
Did she?
Oh yeah,
she did.
Yeah, she is very much about female empowerment, and he's got, my male boss coming in and telling me that I'm wasting her time and da 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 da, and she's all like, she's not wasting my time, you're wasting my time. and I have loved her ever since that moment, and I work a lot with organizations that Jane Fonda also supports, so love. Long story.
So cool. But from the time we got on this call and we were talking about it being a family business, that kept coming in. And whenever Gracie, Jane's character, when they started creating that, the lube, but when she went in to masturbate and she was like, my wrist, she came back with a locked wrist, and they made that vibrator. It's all I've been able to think about this whole interview, and so I'm so glad that you knew what I was talking about, because it's such a good show. But
it is. And I highly recommend Unbound Love, if you want sex toys. They have some of the best. It's woman owned. Polly, she's amazing. And so whenever someone is looking for some ultimate sex toys that are made for women by women, that's where I send them.
Okay. Yeah. The more you know.
Exactly.
Oh man, I feel like we covered a lot in this chat. So much stuff. But just so everybody can find you, or if you want to just give information on the company, can you tell us where to find you at so we can go find all the things?
Yes, definitely. So you can definitely check us out on our website, desertharvest.com. We don't do a lot of stores because we're recommended by medical professionals a lot of the times, and patients order directly from us. So we're in hospitals and hospital-based pharmacies and stuff like that. So we don't do a lot of stores, but you can definitely order on our website. You can give us a call anytime. We're on Amazon, everything else like that, of course, the necessary evil. But
Hear that?
if you ever have any questions just related to female health, concerns, pelvic or sexual health, definitely reach out to us at 800-222-3901. We're not here just to take orders. We're more than happy to answer questions, and all of my staff are amazing, educated, men and women. My son will get on there and talk to a woman about her vagina and vulva all day, and how to take care of it, and same kind of thing. So you don't have to feel that level of shame if you do get a male when you call us, and you're definitely always welcome to ask for a female if you want.
Super cool. It's been so wonderful having you on, Heather.
Oh, thank you so much, Jacqueline. This has been fun.
Thank you. It means the world for you to say that. So great having you on, and I'm gonna go check out the website.
Let me know.
I'm very intrigued now. Very intrigued. Well, thank you again. Listeners, go find them. And thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye.